I just got back from Washington from one of the toughest weeks since serving. I think this week we all saw the most shocking and appalling footage that came out of Minnesota that resulted in the death of 2 American citizens.
That's Democratic Congressman Vicente Gonzalez, who along with 6 other House Dems helped pass legislation that funded ICE to the tune of $10 billion. Now he's attempting to do damage control. Is it gonna work?
Just last week, some of y'all called me asking why I voted for that DHS funding. Well, let me make it clear. It was not to fund ICE.
But it did fund ICE to the tune of $10 billion, as I said earlier. And Congressman Vicente Gonzalez is a Democrat, and so are the 6 others who were part of this story, who just decided to vote in favor of this legislation. Now, the bill to fund DHS is part of a government funding maneuver, right? But it's a separate bill. You know how usually they do these one big bills that funds everything in the government at once? Well, that actually didn't happen this time around. This time around, the House, under the leadership of Mike Johnson, separated it into several different bills. So in this case, these Democrats, these 7 Democrats, voted in favor of funding DHS specifically, knowing that DHS would be getting around $65 billion. And of that $65 billion, $10 billion was gonna go specifically to ICE. I wanna also note that this happened after the Renee Good shooting. Cenk, thoughts?
Yeah, so we're gonna give you more of their weak ass excuses. Was ICE funding in the bill? But also, what are they gonna do next? Chuck Schumer's threatening to do something. Is he really gonna do it? We'll talk about it after Annie gives you the facts.
So, look, despite the widespread and documented abuse being carried out by DHS and ICE, the House did vote to pass this DHS funding bill. And the Democrats who voted in favor of it, yes, included Representative Vicente Gonzalez, but there were others as well, including Representative Henry Cuellar from Texas, Representative Laura Gillen from New York, Jared Golden from Maine, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez from Washington, Don Davis from North Carolina, and then you have Tom Suozzi from New York. In fact, there was one Republican who voted against the funding bill, and that happened to be Congressman Thomas Massie. So we're in a weird topsy-turvy world when you have Republican Thomas Massie voting against an ICE funding bill that 7 Democrats voted in favor of. But the bill does include a few things that I like. I still would vote no on the bill though. So it included things like reducing funding for ICE's enforcement and removal operations by a measly $115 million, decreased the number of detention beds by 5,500, and set aside funding for body cameras for agents and reduce funding for Border Patrol. My understanding is that these federal agents already wear body cams, so I don't really know why they needed that concession in this bill when that's already happening. But Cenk, your thoughts on these 7 Democrats voting in favor of the bill?
Yeah, so first on Massie. So why did Massie vote no? Because Massie's anti-war, but he's a right-winger in every other way. Well, because he asked a good question, which then made me ask it. Look, I get it. This is what I say all the time about all these things, but I want you to have the same realization. They already gave DHS tens of billions of dollars earlier.
Yes, they did.
And Massie's question is, as a fiscal conservative, why do they need another $64 billion? Tell me what they are going to do with $64 billion. Another $10 billion for ICE alone. We already gave them tons and tons and tons of money. They literally don't know what to do with it. They're giving away like $50,000 signing bonuses.
I think it's because of that economic surplus that we're enjoying in this country right now.
Yeah. Or, oh yeah, we have a $38 trillion deficit when we're literally borrowing all this money from China and have to pay interest rate on it for the rest of our lives. So that goes to, we didn't need this at almost at all, right? Then you get to the 7 Democrats. Look, it's a combination of things. So most of them are in swing districts. So they've been taught to, if you're in a swing district, whenever any issue of safety or security, don't think, just vote with the Republicans, right? No, there are some cases where that would make sense if there's really an increase in crime and you don't want to deny that increase in crime, et cetera, no problem, right? But then there are cases that don't make any sense. That's where you have to use your mind. The problem with politicians is they're all blank slates. They are all picked to have no mind and just do what the donors tell them to do. So they're like, me do what consultants and donors tell me to do.
But Jake, in this case, I actually fully disagree on the donor angle because
no, I didn't say.
Oh, okay,
I'm saying
because the donors love illegal immigration. They do. The donors overwhelmingly love it because it's cheap labor for them, and they don't have, their workers won't have legal recourse. I mean, that's part of the reason why immigration is as broken as it is in this country.
In fact, Anna, what I was going to say is, if you notice, Wall Street Journal, New York Post, and Fox News, which we'll talk more about later in the show, have all flipped on this and criticizing Trump administration, all run by Rupert Murdoch, who is really in that corporate group that is pro illegal immigration, and they like to use it as a BS talking point and political points, but they don't actually want them to leave.
That's right. That's totally right.
So what I was going to finish the thought with here is normally they're told by the donors what to think. In this case, they're told by the consultants what to think. And consultants tell them, don't think, just vote with the Republicans on any safety or security issue. But here, they stepped on a landmine, a political one.
Now, I want to be very, very clear. Even though the Democrats claim that they got some real concessions in that DHS funding bill, the reality is it did not include any restraints on ICE's violent tactics, especially in places like Minnesota or elsewhere in the country. So the Democratic votes were critical. Without the Democratic votes, the Republicans don't have a wide enough margin in order to pass that funding bill, right? Especially with Thomas Massie voting against it. And so while a solid contingent of Senate Democrats had been expected to follow suit and allow the measure to clear Congress altogether, now following the shooting of Alex Preddy, they're changing their tune. So we're gonna get to the Senate in just a second.
Don't forget, Noble Mobile saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize, what the hell, why am I paying so much to Verizon and AT&T? So your bill's only $50 a month, but it can actually be less because they give you money back if you don't use your data. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason to not switch. It's crazy not to switch because same phone, same number, same contacts, literally nothing changes. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. All right, we'll be right back.
But first, I do want to talk about Tom Suozzi because he's the only Democratic lawmaker who voted in favor of the DHS funding bill in the House, who is now coming out and admitting that he made a mistake. And guys, my instinct, because I'm a human being, is to dunk on him. My instinct, because I'm a human being, is to chide him, right? No, make no mistake about it. But we also have to make space for people to admit they were wrong. And we should provide positive reinforcement when a lawmaker is like, oh my God, I made a terrible mistake and I'm sorry. So here's what he says. I failed to view the DHS funding vote as a referendum on the illegal and immoral conduct of ICE in Minneapolis. I hear the anger from my constituents, real happy that his constituents are angry and saying something, and I take responsibility for that. I have long been critical of ICE's unlawful behavior and I must do a better job demonstrating that. The senseless and tragic murder of Alex Preddy underscores what happens when untrained federal agents operate without accountability. President Trump must immediately end Operation Metro Surge and ICE's occupation of Minneapolis that has sown chaos, led to tragedy, and undermined experienced law enforcement. Okay, so he's obviously apologetic here. He realized he voted for a terrible DHS funding bill. We'll keep an eye on Suozzi and see if he has actually learned from his mistakes here, but there was really no reason for him to vote in favor of this DHS funding bill.
Yeah, two things. Anna, you're right. And I was on my way to Dunkin' Donuts.
I feel you.
Yeah, I was gonna dunk on him pretty hard. But you reminded me, wait, we gotta show grace. And what do I always say? Take yes for an answer.
Yes, exactly.
So he's now flipped around and now he's saying sorry, sorry, sorry. So if we give grace to Massie and MTG, we certainly have to give grace to Suozzi when he comes to the correct position. So thank you for reminding me of that. And then the second thing is, hey, everybody out there, way to let him know. If you're in his district and you called him or you wrote to him, you did it. He heard you. He heard you loud and clear. He's now changed his position, and that's how a democracy is supposed to work. So thank you for taking part in it, and you see you can make a difference. In fact, guys, all the protesters, I love you guys. You made a huge difference. Trump's retreating, and that's because you guys would not let go of your constitutional rights. I love it.
I love it too. Okay, so now let's move over to the Senate, because following the shooting of Alex Preddy, Senate Democrats are really thinking about what kind of leverage they have when it comes to these government funding bills. So Senate Republicans need 7 Democratic votes in favor of the funding bill in order to pass the legislative filibuster, which requires 60 votes in order for the legislation to pass. However, several Senate Democrats have said that they will not vote for it without stricter guardrails on immigration enforcement. So let's go to the Chuck Schumer post, where he says, what's happening in Minnesota is appalling and unacceptable in any American city. Democrats sought common sense reforms in the Department of Homeland Security spending bill, but because of Republicans' refusal to stand up to Trump, the DHS bill is woefully inadequate to rein in the abuses of ICE. I will vote no. Senate Democrats will not provide the votes to proceed to the appropriations bill if the DHS funding bill is included. So Senator Jackie Rosen from Nevada, who voted against Dems in order to end the shutdown this past November, is joining along. So Senator Jackie Rosen says enough is enough. We need to rein in ICE's out of control conduct. As a member of the US Senate, I have the responsibility to hold the Trump administration accountable when I see abuses of power like we are seeing from ICE right now. That's why I'll be voting against any government funding package that contains the bill that funds this agency until we have guardrails in place to curtail these abuses of power and ensure more accountability and transparency. So several other Senate Democrats have co-signed onto this effort. We'll see if they actually stay true to this pledge, because I do think it's important for appropriate guardrails to be placed on these federal agents so they're not violating Americans' constitutional rights.
Yeah, so are they gonna hold? I mean, 9 out of 10 times they don't. So they'll huff and puff. We've got our strongly worded letters ready already. But there was that one instance in Trump's first term where Trump ate it, and it really wasn't that Schumer and Pelosi won it. It was that Trump lost. Why? If you remember, there was that famous meeting in the Oval Office with the 3 of them, and Trump's like, I'm gonna shut down the government. I'm the one doing it. I'm responsible. You're like, why did you just say that? Like, that's gonna hurt you big time. But he was not bright enough to realize that that would hurt him. And so that put him so far behind the 8 ball that he eventually had to concede. That hasn't happened here, but this is making him more and more unpopular. That's why the Democrats are pouncing. Because look, in order for Chuck Schumer to get up out of bed, like from underneath the covers where he's hiding, like 23 and a half hours of the day, the poll numbers have to be like gigantic. Like, don't worry, Chucky, 78% of the country's on your side, right? Ooh, he's like, maybe I could take an inch forward here. There you go, attaboy, Chucky, keep going. Wouldn't
it be kind of badass if we had like a more, if Chuck Schumer was more like, I'm Chucky, wanna play,
Well, you know what? I mean, at least it would like put a fear in someone.
Yeah,
at least it
I
would
like
be
that energy. I'm into that energy, but yeah, Chuck Schumer doesn't have it. But we'll see, we'll see.
And just last thing on that, wouldn't it be amazing if we had a Democrat who actually scared Republicans a little bit? Like, and I don't mean the voters.
Not scared of like violence or something like that.
No. I don't mean the voters, I mean the politicians.
Of course.
If there was a Democratic politician who was strong enough, populist enough, and he's like, no, I'm gonna get paid family leave pass or whatever the law is, and I dare you to vote against it, because politically, I'm gonna break your back and I'm gonna drink your spinal fluid.
Oh, ew. Okay, all right.
Okay. So, look, Rebellion PAC is a bunch of candidates that are populist left. No, they're all great guys. That's part of why we picked them, and they have all the right policies. The one guy out of that group that I could see doing that is Ojeda, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Richard Ojeda, and running in North Carolina. Check him out. He's a badass, and he's a strong fighter on the left. So there are some folks like that. We just gotta elevate them. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.